Hi, everyone, and welcome back. Today, we have the honor of welcoming Brendan Mahan. Brendan is the producer and host of the popular ADHD Essentials podcast, where he's interviewed and connected with over 200 experts in the field of ADHD. But Brendan doesn't just study ADHD, he lives it daily. And with over 10 years in education and counseling, his hands on experience makes him truly exceptional. His expertise has been recognized by major publications such as the Washington Post, LinkedIn, and Attitude magazine. He also plays a crucial role in shaping the future of ADHD research and support as a member of a planning committee for the International Conference on ADHD and as a board member of the Men's ADHD Support Group. And let's also not forget that he's the genius behind the brilliant idea of the Wall of Awful, which we'll talk about in just a bit. Welcome, Brandon. We're thrilled to have you.
Yeah, thank you. It's awesome to be here. I'm honored.
First, I'd love for you to explain to our audience how the Wall of Awful is built. What exactly is it, and how does it develop over time?
Yeah, so the Wall of Awful is my model for the emotional impact of repeated failure that comes with ADHD and executive function challenges and just being a human. Like, it's not unique to people with ADHD. Everybody's got a Wall of Awful. And the idea behind it is every time we fail, we get a brick in our wall, right? We get a failure brick. Along with that failure brick, we're going to get a disappointment brick because we've disappointed ourselves. But we've also disappointed other people, so potentially. So anyone in our life whose opinion to us is important, that matters. If they're aware of the failure, if they're somehow connected to that failure, we might get a brick for them as well. And when we get a disappointment brick, we also run the risk of getting a rejection brick too, right? When we disappoint someone, we're afraid they're going to reject us. And it doesn't really matter if they actually do or don't. What matters is how we feel about it, the concerns we have. So it's possible someone might get in quick and say, like, this is not a big deal. And then the brick doesn't stick. But if some time passes and we're not sure about whether this person is upset with us or not, those bricks are staying. And there's other bricks that come along with all of this, right? We might get a guilt brick. We might get a big block of shame. The difference being guilt is I feel like I made a mistake. Shame is I feel like I am the mistake. That gets especially tricky for folks who have ADHD, because if I made the mistake because I have ADHD, is it guilt or is it shame, right? Like, do I feel bad that I made the mistake, or do I feel like I am the mistake because my ADHD caused this particular challenge or problem? And there's other blocks, right? Like rejection leads to loneliness. So if I've been rejected enough time, I might start to feel lonely, start to feel like an outcast, and now I've got blocks of loneliness in there too. So this barrier, it's an emotional barrier that is erected between us and these areas that we typically fail at, right? If I mess up once at something, I'm not getting a Wall of Awful for that. It's when I continually make these mistakes. And the walls can interact with each other, right? If I have a Wall of Awful for doing my homework, and I also have a Wall of Awful for math specifically as a subject, and I'm a kid, right? I might climb my Wall of Awful for homework and be going, and I do my English and it's okay, and I do my social studies and it's okay, and then I hit math and all of a sudden I'm stalled out again. There's probably another wall that I'm encountering. I worked with a kid, this was early on when I was still kind of figuring the model out. I was working with a kid and his brother came into the kitchen where we were working, and all of a sudden he couldn't do anything anymore because he had a Wall of Awful for getting stuff done when his little brother was around, because his little brother tended to be a disruptive force in the house, and their relationship was contested and heated. And so all of a sudden he was right back to where he started. And that disrupted him enough that he had to go back and climb some of the homework wall as well as the brother wall to get reconnected to what he was doing. So it's not a situation where it's always prior to the task. Sometimes they can show up in the middle. Or if we do a task for a while and then take a break and come back to it, we might find we have to go back up, maybe not the whole wall, but some of it. And so that's the Wall of Awful in a nutshell. For those who want a more expansive version, I'm literally in the process of writing the book right now. We just finished the book proposal, so that'll be shopped around in the coming weeks. Yeah.
Beautiful. So can you explain to parents of kids with ADHD, or specifically, how the Wall of Awful affects their kids' ability to set or follow daily tasks and routines? How does this emotional barrier impact their lives?
Yeah, so it's just going to slow us down, right? And it happens to adults too. It happens to me. It's not just a kid thing, but it can help parents understand why their kids might be struggling. And it also validates that they are doing things, right? Like if you've ever seen your kid, like they're sort of taking their stuff out of their backpacks really, really slowly. And as parents, we get frustrated. We're like, come on, right? Like all of a sudden I'm pulling iPads and binders out of backpacks and stuff and putting them on the table. And I'm like, get going, right? Well, what was happening was that kid was climbing their Wall of Awful. And we didn't recognize it as such. We often look at that as procrastination or refusal to do the task or something. And what the Wall of Awful does is it validates that internal struggle. And it also helps those of us on the outside recognize it, right? Sometimes we're like, wait a minute, what's going on here? And one way to find out if your kid is climbing their wall is to ask them. Like, that's the best way to find out. Teach them about this idea and then ask them. I should probably back up and mention there's 5 ways that people try to get past the Wall of Awful. 2 don't work, 1 works but isn't so great, and 2 work. The 2 that don't work are staring at it and going around it, right? Staring at it, I'm not really engaging. If I decide to go around it, well, this is a metaphor. It's infinitely wide. I know, because I made it up. You're never going around this wall. You're going to end up doing something else, right? You're going to get distracted, which again doesn't necessarily mean procrastination. It just means a lesser skilled way of trying to activate. The way that works but is not great is when we try to smash through the wall, right? That's using anger and frustration to activate. And sometimes it's okay. Sometimes we can do that in a way that's healthy and manageable. But typically it damages relationships because I'm either like snapping at mom and dad and fine, I'll do my homework. Shut up, go away, that kind of stuff. Or I'm flipping the hood up over my head and I'm beating myself up. And why do I stink? Why can't I just do this? What's wrong with me? And again, I'm kind of framing this around kids because we're talking to parents right now, but it applies to adults too. So the smashing is not great. It's another lesser skilled. The two that work but require skill building are climbing it, which is processing those emotions, just dealing with them, navigating them, managing them, coming to terms with them, letting them go through us, and then climbing the wall, right? Accepting that I have this wall to manage. And the other side of that is putting a door in it, which is changing our emotional state, because that's what the wall is about. Smashing it, right, is a lot like putting a door in it. I'm changing my emotional state to anger or frustration, and that's helping me move through these really difficult emotions. But I can also change my emotional state to one that's more calm or more motivated and excited. And the way to do that is to like listen to music, work with a friend, go somewhere else. A lot of those dopamine strategies that we have apply to this. And because those strategies, the increase of dopamine, is changing our emotional state. It's helping us feel more balanced, regulate our emotions more effectively, get some of that motivation that is so often elusive. And I don't typically start with motivation because it's so elusive. There's better ways to do that. But that's sort of the deal. And when our kids are crashing into this wall, one, we want to talk to them and see what's up, find out what's going on, right? What's the wall? What's the hold up? What's making this hard? And also support them in doing the task. Like we can make the task easier and meet them where they are. And that doesn't mean they're never going to get to where we need them to be. I'm not saying do the thing for them. I'm saying give them the first step, right? Like start their orange and they'll peel it the rest of the way. What a lot of parents do is they don't start the orange. They peel the whole orange and pull the different slices apart and like sprinkle some powdered sugar on it. And then they're like, here's your orange. It's like, no, just start the whole, that's it. The kid just can't break the skin of this orange. Let's give them some support in that step and then back off. A thing I did with my kids when they were much younger, they had to do like flashcards for homework one day. They had to write vocabulary words on one side and the definition on the other, and they do 10 of them. And they were in like second or third grade. This was the first time they had an assignment like that, and they were overwhelmed by it. It was more than they could do. And I said, all right, so how about this? I'll do the definitions, you do the words. Right? And they were like, oh, okay, because the definitions was the hard part. That's the most of the writing. They can write a word down. So I wrote the definitions on every single card, and then I mixed them up because I want them to match the definition to the word. Part of the point of this is studying. I didn't want them to be able to go in order. I told them the cards were mixed up. And they were like, fine, cool. And they did it, no problem. And over the next few times, like I think I did all of them the first time, I did half of them the second time. The third time I did 2. And then the fourth time I said, I'll do 2 again, but you don't get to pick the longest ones both times. Because of course they do that and I know it. And then that was it. 4 weeks into this assignment, I'm done. And what I prevented was meltdowns and arguments and battles with my kid and damaging that relationship because they didn't have to fight me on it. I supported them and I scaffolded them to what they needed to be able to do. And it became not a problem anymore. And we can do that with all kinds of things that we ask of our kids. And it manages the wall.
Brilliant. So for our kids to be able to say to themselves, I can do this, or I need to get started, parents need to actively teach them and remind them how capable they really are. Mm-hmm. What would you say to parents who think this approach feels kind of off, kind of fake, like they cannot say something that they don't truly believe?
Yeah, don't say something you don't truly believe. Like that's not, because your kids will know. Your kids will know you don't believe it, right? And most of the reason why parents feel that is because they're like babbling empty platitudes to their kids. But you're so smart and you're so good at stuff and you're so great and blah, blah, blah. That doesn't work anyway. Even if you believe it, it's not great because your kid probably doesn't believe it. Your kid is like, well, yeah, you have to say that. You're my mom or dad. Like you kind of have to think I'm pretty cool. What we want to do is cite sources. We want to provide evidence, right? I said to my kids yesterday, I was like, guys, I keep meaning to say this. I just haven't said it. I keep forgetting. Like, I really am happy and proud of the fact that I can trust you to make the right decisions, right? My guys are 15. It really is meaningful to me that I can trust you to hop on your bike and ride to your friend's house and then ride around in town and you're not getting in trouble and you're not making bad decisions and you will come home in a reasonable number of hours and you can sort of like, you can judge if it's too hot and you should head home or you should call because you're getting overheated. Like you guys have done those sorts of things. And there's some examples in there, right? Like they had just ridden into town with their buddy and they knew they did a good job. I didn't have to go into too much detail. They've a few times this week judged when it was too hot to do some yard work and when it wasn't and that when to stop and all these kinds of things. So I was referencing stuff that had happened over the course of the week. And because I was citing those sources, at some more specific than others, they knew I was telling the truth. I wasn't like blowing smoke. And also because I used words that are not empty platitudes, right? When you say to your kid, it really means a lot to me that I can trust you. That's a big deal. And it also helps us as parents. When we give them those specific compliments, we're remembering what it is about our kid that we value, what it is about our kids that is impressive. And we're calling attention to that. So it sticks in our heads too. And now stuff doesn't ring as false. Even on the days when our kids are driving us bananas, we can lean into this like, yeah, but my kid does a great job with their art or is so good with their nieces and nephews or is trustworthy enough to ride into town and not like commit vandalism or something. And also judge when it's just gotten too hot and they need to pick up or something. Those specific examples help things on both sides, both for the kid and for the parent.
Exactly. So saying the truth, finding the one thing that you're truly proud of. Are there other strategies that you can recommend to parents to try that, can help their kids to feel really good about themselves?
It's a lot of that is give them the opportunity to do stuff and also like create those opportunities, right? Because a lot of parents that I work with are trying to give their kids the opportunities to do stuff. And the kids are like, yeah, but I can sit on the couch and be on my phone and yay, right? And I've had these conversations with my kids. I'm like, look, what I want you to do is experience the world. I want you to experience life. And that's not on your phone. Your phone is not the world. It's not life. It seems like it is because it connects to so many different places and so many different areas. but it's not. It's this virtual life that doesn't have the same kind of concrete experience that going and riding into town and hanging out with your friend does, right? Or clearing all the bushes off the side of the house, right? Like that's a different level of experience. My guys are 15, so they're old enough to be clearing bushes and stuff and riding into town. They're identical twins too. So when I say my guys and then say one age, it's because they're the same age. But those real concrete, real world experiences are where self-esteem gets built. Self-esteem is not built by just telling my kid they're great. They need evidence. I need evidence, which means they've got to do stuff. And that doesn't mean that they shouldn't be allowed to use their phones and that stuff. It just means that we kind of set some boundaries around that.
We'll talk about screens later on. But when kids with ADHD get mentally drained, they end up taking forever to do easy stuff like you were saying, getting something out of the bag. And this can take hours, and parents are getting frustrated. How can we help parents, to just help them without this frustration inside?
That's the parents' problem. It's not the kid's problem, right? Like it's on us to manage our emotions and modulate our expectations and set reasonable expectations. And we know our kids, right? Like read your kid. If your kid is spent, let them be spent. And if they're not spent, then you're probably not getting this kind of pushback, hopefully. And if you know the stuff that they're doing earlier in the day is going to cause them to get spent, and then you have big important stuff later, maybe rearrange the sequencing of your day, right? Do the important stuff that you need them to get that done sooner so that they aren't spent by the time we are asking them to do that. And another component to this is when we're talking about ADHD is a neurological developmental disorder. The ADHD brain lags behind its peers in terms of its development. And that lag is at around 30%, which is tricky because years are a base 12 system. The kind of guidelines from before we had the brain scans was a year to 3 years. And that it's just easier to process. So we'll play with that model. And we'll just take the middle. 1 to 3 years, let's take 2, right? A freshman in high school is suddenly in 7th grade. That's a big change. That's a 7th grader is in 5th grade, right? We're jumping from high school to middle school, from middle school to elementary school. Those are big, big differences. Your senior in high school is a sophomore developmentally, right? And not in every way. That's part of what's tricky and challenging about ADHD is you might have a kid whose vocabulary is through the roof and well beyond their years. They might read way above their grade level, but their ability to execute on complex tasks and follow multiple step directions is a year or 2 behind, right? All of a sudden, how come my kid can read like, I don't know, The Lord of the Rings in 8th grade and process and understand all that complicated stuff, but they can't clean their room? What the heck, right? Well, because like asymmetrical development, right? Their brains are not growing and developing at a unified rate because they have ADHD. Or they might also be gifted, which only makes that trickier, right? Or there might be some autism sprinkled in here, which makes all of a sudden social stuff is more complicated. We got to meet our kids where they are. We have to let them be performing at the level that they're performing at, and don't say, well, because my kid is 12, they should be able to do this. Say, my kid can do this. They struggle in this other area. Let's bridge the gap and help scaffold them to where we want them to be by setting reasonable expectations and then asking them to go a little beyond that, not miles beyond. And the other piece for parents to hear, broadly speaking with the frustration, is, and I talk about this a lot in my parent groups, your kid's story is not your story, right? They're the main character. We're not the main character. And we often act like we are. We often act like my kid is failing math and somehow that has something to do with whether or not I'm a good person or a good parent or something. No, your kid's just struggling in math. It doesn't reflect on you unless you're undermining their ability to do math, unless you're like taking the homework away and making fun of them for not being able to do math. Like it doesn't reflect on you as a parent. Even if you're not able to afford to get them a tutor or you don't have the time to be able to bring them to a tutor and that kind of stuff, even that doesn't reflect on you as a parent. There are other resources at school that they can take advantage of, and you might need to push them to take advantage of that stuff. But it's your kid's story. It's not your story. We are just supporting characters in their tale.
I like that idea. Here at Strategic Parenting Community, we often hear parents worry that if they let their kids do things their own way, in their own pace, it will just, take their entire day. How can they ensure kids to climb their wall at their own pace while also keeping things on track?
Some of this depends on age. Right, the younger the kid, the more we have to be on top of them. The older the kid, the more we should back off. But also like back off, right? Let the kid do it their way and see what happens. Run an experiment, right? Like, all right, today I'm gonna tell my kid the 3 things they need to do, right? Age is gonna affect this. If they're little, like we're not doing complicated stuff. If they're older, it gets more complicated. If they're little, we don't do as many things. If they're older, we give them a list that has more stuff on it. But like, try a day and go, all right, here's the deal, kid. Like, these are the things I need done. I know I can trust you to do it. So if you need help, tell me. But we're gonna do an experiment. I'm just gonna like let you do it. And let's see what happens, right? I'm gonna back off because I feel like I've been all over you on your case too much. So I'm gonna back off. I just need you to do this stuff, right? And see what happens. And if they don't, maybe you check in midway through the day if they're younger, and you don't, not if they're in high school, right? And then see how much they get done. If they get nothing done, then we go, all right, so I backed off too far. Oh, kid, that's on me. Regardless, this is on you, right? And this runs counter to what I just said. I just said it's their story, not your story, right? And now I'm going to say this is on us because welcome to leadership, right? Like that's just the nature of leadership is. It's my responsibility, but it's your story kind of. And as you show me you can take more and more responsibility, I back off and let you have the responsibility. So we meet them where they are and we guide them and we go, all right, what went wrong? Right? This is not a gotcha, haha, now you're in trouble. This is a cool, we asked to do this and it worked to whatever degree it worked. How do we help it work better moving forward? Did I set too high expectations? Were there just too many things to actually get done in one day? Is it that you spent the first half of the day on your phone and then scrambled for the second half, and that's what happened? And if so, maybe I should have factored some of that in, right? Like, do I need to talk to the kid about planning their day and making sure there's time for breaks and not making them feel overwhelmed? Depending on the age, we probably do need to do those things. But trusting our kids more and kind of doing the executive functioning planning stuff and backing off and letting them do the execution piece is important. And then as they get older, we do less executive functioning work and they do more. And it might mean like I do this before lunch, right? We make a plan from the morning stuff. They do that. Then between lunch and dinner, they have to do this stuff. And then once dinner stuff happens, they're done. And we might need to check in. But by and large, I think we just overhelp. And then we back off completely, right? And if you're going to do that, make an experiment. Don't make it like, now I'm upset because you didn't do anything. We got to go. And usually it's somewhere in the middle. They need a little bit of support and a little bit of us backing off. And that percentage varies. It's a juggling act. And it's going to vary day to day and age to age and all kinds of stuff. But the least skilled options, the two least skilled options are overhelp or don't help at all. And it takes more skill to find the middle between those two. And that's okay. Just like our kids are building skills, we can build skills too.
And we do that by experimenting, right?
Yeah. And we do that by coming and listening to this program and learning about all kinds of stuff from all kinds of people. Like the parents who are here are the ones that are becoming more skilled.
True. Let's talk about transitions for a minute. ADHD makes it tough for kids to change from one task to another, which can really complicate their daily routines. Can you explain why that happens and what the three types of transitions are?
Yeah, I'm gonna up it from 3 a little bit, sort of. I have a 9-part transition model that demonstrates that every transition is really 6 different transitions. Yay! So what I need folks to do is imagine a tic-tac-toe board, right? So just kind of hold that in your head, and then superimpose over that tic-tac-toe board a door, like a room, a hallway, and then another room, right? So the middle part of that tic-tac-toe board is the hallway. One side is a room, and the other side is another room. And then we'll go up and down that tic-tac-toe board in a second, but first we're going across. So every transition involves transitioning out of the task that we're doing, right? So if my kid is playing Minecraft and I want them to come to have dinner, they have to transition out of Minecraft. Then there's a gap that might last however long, right? It might be fast. They might come and sit down and eat, and yay, there was no real gap. They might come in and sit down at the kitchen table, and you're not quite done cooking yet, and you're still serving food or whatever. And now they're sitting in that gap waiting to transition into eating, right? And then we have to transition into the next task, right? So out of the first task, a little bit of a gap, into the next task. So that's really every transition is 2 transitions. I'm transitioning out of what I was doing and then into what is coming next, right? Now we're going to go down because each transition is really 3 different transitions. We have to transition physically. I left the living room. I put the Minecraft controller down, left the living room, sat down at the kitchen table. There's my physical transition, right? We also have to transition cognitively and emotionally. And those are the ones that people miss because I can see my kid transition physically. Don't always notice. I can't always tell whether they transition cognitively or emotionally. And that's where things get tricky, right? If my kid is really frustrated by Minecraft when I take them out of it, or they're frustrated by me taking them out of it, now they come in the kitchen table and they're sitting down. They haven't emotionally transitioned into dinner yet. They're still frustrated, right? Or I'm sure we've all had that time when the kid sits down at the kitchen table and we're like, all right, so how's everyone's day going? And they're like, Minecraft, 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 Minecraft. And we often misread that as our kid telling us all they did all day was play Minecraft because maybe we were at work or something. We don't know what they did. But really, it's just that they were playing Minecraft 15 minutes before dinner, and that's where they still are cognitively, right? That transition piece is critical to recognize that they're as complicated as they are. We end up with 9 different components, right? We have to transition out cognitively, emotionally, and physically. We have to navigate that gap cognitively, emotionally, and physically, and then we have to transition into the next thing, cognitively, emotionally, and physically. So that's 9 pieces, and there's 6 transitions in there as well. That's a lot of places where things can go wrong, and that's where ADHD rears its ugly head by making those transitions harder, because especially the emotional component. And also, if the gap is too big, we're going to lose them. They're going to wander away from the table because the gap was too big, right? Or if they're really, really driven, if the gap is too big, they're going to miss it, right? They're like, they come into the kitchen table to eat and there's nothing on the table and they're chowing down on grapes out of the fridge all of a sudden because they transitioned right off the bat, right? It depends on how driven the kid is and what their level of sort of initiative is. I had a conversation with Jessica McCabe at the conference last year about this very thing. And she was like, there's no gap. What are you talking about gap? I'm like, yeah, Jessica, because you're super driven and you skip right over the gap all the time, right? Like that's why, but that's not everybody. Some of us, like if we have a slower cognitive speed, even that can affect the size of the gap and it can seem bigger. So yeah, transitions can be tricky.
A lot here that we were scribbling down. Considering
it's in the book. That's all in the book.
So I was writing down. Considering the typical problems with task switching that we were discussing, what tips do you have for parents to build routines that really work well and are simple for their kids to stick to?
Yeah, some of it is making the routines clear, right? Like if I don't know what I'm doing, it's going to be harder for me to make the transitions. But if I know what's coming next, I'm in better shape. Another thing that causes trouble for transitioning with ADHD kids is our poor time awareness. Right? Like it's really easy for us to lose track of time and to think that it's been 5 minutes when it's really been 15 minutes, or to think that it's been 15 minutes when it's really been 5. And so building in supports for that time piece is also critical. I've got kids who I've worked with, even some adults that have taken the strategy on, but specifically started with teenagers, kids who like just take forever in the shower because the shower is a really sensory intense experience. There's warm water, there's noise, there's steam, there's all kinds of stuff. And they just would get lost in there and take a 30-minute shower when they didn't have 30 minutes, right? So the strategy I have to support that is just make a playlist. And that's it. We have a few songs that we play, and sometimes we're matching things to that song, to the playlist of various songs. I had one girl who would wash her hair forever. Mom was like, my daughter goes in the shower and she just takes forever to wash her hair, or she forgets to wash her hair and then has to shower again, and then the hair takes forever, right? Both of those were a problem for this particular kid. And I was like, well, cool, we're already doing the playlist thing. Just pick one or two songs and tell her, when this song is playing, wash your hair. When this other song is playing, rinse your hair. That's it. That's all it is. And it worked because she needed that extra structure, right? And we can do that in lots of ways. You could have, like, it happens in elementary schools and middle schools, sometimes in high schools, where, like, when there's a certain task, there's a song that plays, right? It's time to clean up after, like, clean up the science lab or something, and all of a sudden we've got music playing. And the kids know, right? Like, it makes it more engaged because there's a song playing. It's giving me a little bit of an audio fidget, and it lets me pace out how much time I have before I need to be finished because I know the song, at least eventually. So those are sort of strategies as well to kind of help kids transition. And music, the whole job of music is to communicate emotions to us. So if there's an emotional component to this transition and we're playing music that's going to help support us in the direction of the emotions we need for this task, it'll be even more useful.
That's brilliant. I love the playlist idea. Is this just the music they enjoy, or is it specific music they should?
No, it's whatever songs they want. It's their playlist. I don't have to have any say in the songs, except maybe like how long it takes, right? Like mom or dad might need to go, well, you're not listening to like Stairway to Heaven 4 times.
Exactly.
And that's like half an hour or something, right? Like that's too much time. You might need to say, like, let's see how long the songs are and what does that translate to for the shower and that kind of stuff. Is it going to be a 3-song list, list of 3 songs or 5 songs or something? But beyond that, I don't care what you listen to.
Since kids with ADHD struggle with sensory processing, they often need some extra time to zone out. How can we ensure that they get these breaks in today's busy world where parents we're really on the go and kids are often distracted by screens?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's tricky, right? Because sometimes the screen is the break, and that's totally valid. That's totally fine. If the screen is the break, we might want to talk to our kids about what that break looks like and what kinds of things are we doing on the screen. Because if we're trying to de-escalate and we're playing a game that makes us frustrated, that maybe is not the best plan. But sometimes it's totally cool that the screen is the break. And we just, as parents, we need to guide that. And also, the screen causes problems with taking a break and processing emotions, right? And this is true for adults and kids. This is not just a kid thing. One of the ways that, like when we talk about a break and sort of zoning out and needing sensory processing and all that stuff, a lot of this is emotional. A lot of this is finding that balance again and de-escalating our emotions and getting away from the sensory intensity and all that stuff. The screens have crowded out mind-wandering mode and the default mode network of the brain, which is when we regulate our emotions. Now, I know there's people who are like, if you've got some anxiety stuff, sometimes the default mode network is risky because we're looking at rumination, we're looking at that kind of stuff. And I understand that there's ways to kind of guide that. Often I recommend guiding it with music to sort of avoid some of the harsher and anxious thoughts. But we also have to process those emotions. And if we're always on our phone, we're not getting the default mode network. We're not getting to the point where our brain gets to wander and process that stuff. A lot of the processing happens subconsciously. It happens, we're not really aware of it. So I encourage adults, especially, and kids too, to like go be somewhere without your phone. I did this yesterday. I went to the supermarket and left my phone in the car just to see how I felt, just to see how tight is my phone's leash on my brain, right? Because I do this experiment fairly regularly, it wasn't that bad. I really only felt it when I was in line waiting. And even that, I only felt it because I realized the person ahead of me was going to take forever. And that's good, right? To me, that's a good sign. But I've had times when I'm going through the supermarket, I'm like walking up an aisle, tapping my pocket, trying to take my phone out, right? And I'm like, Brendan, like, why are you so stuck on your phone? Like, you're just go buy Cheerios or whatever, right? And so finding times to be away from the phone is important. And that means setting boundaries. That means like my kids can get like 2 hours of the phone a day, a little bit looser in the summer. In the school year, it's 5 o'clock to 7 o'clock and that's it. But also we respect the job of the phone because it also like it's a tool as well as an entertainment device. So if they're getting texts from friends and stuff, fine, cool. Text your friends at 3 o'clock. That's okay. But don't get sucked into like YouTube or something after that texting. And I've had to teach my kids that, and I've had to teach me that, and it's not easy. And also like if you're on your phone a lot, then your kids are on their phones a lot because we're modeling that behavior. So we have to recognize our role in this too. And yeah, so zoning out and processing, just put the phone down, have stuff in the house that works for that, right? We've got fidgets, have books for your kids to read, weighted blankets, those kinds of things are also useful.
Right. Well, modeling is definitely the way to go, at least until the store, right? Leave your phone.
Oh, yeah.
But how can we also help develop kids' good screen time habits?
A lot of it is boundary setting, right? Like, when are you going to use it? Why are you going to like? So boundaries around why am I using it and what am I hoping to get out of this experience? Boundaries around what time am I using this or not using it? I've recently picked up the habit. I'm not perfect at it yet, but I'm getting there. Where I avoid my phone for the first 90 minutes of my day. It's great because I wasn't realizing how dysregulated I was getting because of my phone, because of like, and how much it was messing up my day. I'd look at my calendar to be like, what am I doing today? And then I'd wander over to my email and go, all right, well, what else do I have to do? But email is not my to-do list, but if I have people sending me, hey, I need you to do this, this, and this, all of a sudden I'm derailing my day's plan, right? Not a great plan, not a great strategy. So setting some boundaries, right? We put our phones down at about 7 o'clock at night. I'm not picking mine up for the first 90 minutes of the day. And we talk to our kids about what are you using the phone for? If it's 7:30 or 8 o'clock at night and my kid picks up his phone, he'll say to me, I'm just looking at the weather tomorrow. Right? Cool. Okay. And I'm not like, why are you really looking at YouTube? Right? Because I know I can trust my kid because we've had these conversations enough. And the other piece to healthy phone use is media, right? Like our kids have to be media literate, and teaching them media literacy is important. I've had conversations with my kids for years, especially since COVID, during COVID, about because I homeschooled them and they did some solo research and stuff. And I was like, if you're watching a YouTube channel or something and it's making you angry, that is not a channel to watch. Not just that video, like that whole channel can go away, right? If you're watching a channel that's making you feel like you're a victim to some group, that channel is not a channel to watch. Like you are a bunch of white boys. You're not the victims to anybody. This is different if you're like LGBT or person of color. My kids are like two white boys, Jewish. So sure, there might be like a bit of a, like someone being anti-Semitic, but by and large, like no. And on the other side of that, if you're watching it, if my guys are watching it and they're watching a video that's making them feel like a certain group of people is stupid or less worthy or something like that, that's also not a channel to watch. And even if it's just a channel that's making you feel like everybody is dumb, right? They definitely fell into that rabbit hole. They were finding some like Reddit stories that everybody in the Reddit story was someone stupid and a reason to be angry. And I was just like, don't watch that. Like they're not telling you stories about the best and brightest. They're not encouraging you to actually be a better person. They're encouraging you to feel better than the person in the story, which doesn't make you better. It just makes you better by comparison, right? And that's like some advanced media literacy that I was doing with my kids when they were like 12, 13 years old. And we continue to do it because I fall into those traps on occasion, and you just got to realize it happened and get out of that particular algorithmic funnel so you can move into some better, healthier stuff.
Brilliant. I also love how you say that kids with ADHD aren't lazy, but they've learned helplessness because they lack certain skills. For parents, this can be hard to understand since they often compare their kids to others, like you just mentioned. How can we help parents shift their perspective to better support them?
Yeah, what you're going with is I don't believe in the word lazy. I don't think lazy is a thing. I think that when we see someone being lazy, what we're looking at is learned helplessness that's brought about by a lack of skills, right? I have been getting asked to do things that are beyond my ability, and I'm consistently being asked to do things that are beyond my ability. So I've come to the conclusion that I just can't succeed, right? Like I'm not going to win this fight because you never asked me to do something that I can actually do, or at least in this situation, I'm not asked that way. Great way to build a wall of awful, by the way, on your kid is to ask them to do stuff they can't actually pull off. So if you ask them to do something and they're not successful at it, and then you ask them to do it again and they're also not successful at it, change the thing. Like just change what you're asking them to do because they need some skill building. They need the expectations to get lowered so they can meet them, and there's nothing wrong with that. So that piece is critical. Like to just look at our kids and go, all right, what's the skill set that's missing, and how do I teach that skill? And it might be my kid doesn't know how to do the laundry. It might also be my kid has trouble like planning and prioritizing, or they keep doing the urgent thing instead of the important thing, or something like that. Or they have a difficulty ignoring the texts of this particular kid or their friends in general, and I just have to teach them how to set their phone to do not disturb so that they can not be bothered for the next 2 hours while they do their chores or whatever. That's what so much of this is, right? It's instead of comparing our kids to like their friends or their peers, like just look at where they are and go, all right, that's where my kid is. I'm not going to pretend I've never fallen into the trap of like my kids have friends. They're doing all kinds of stuff that my kids are not doing. And that like we had to climb out of a really deep hole mental health wise. When identical twins, one of my kids has obsessive compulsive disorder and was hospitalized for it like back in 8th grade. He's going to be a sophomore in high school, so it was about a year and a half ago. But he was inpatient for 3 months, getting past really severe OCD. And then we had to heal from that. And that took another year, right? And his identical twin, who was affected by his best friend and like second half going away for 3 months, and all of the stuff that happened in our house for the year before that, for it to get bad enough that my kid had to be hospitalized for obsessive compulsive disorder, right? Like brutal. It was really hard. And I've had to go, all right, like, of course my kids are not as engaged at school as their peers are, some of their peers. Nate's OCD was specifically aimed at school, his elementary school, not the high school, but still. And we had a lot of healing to do. And thankfully now we're into growth mode and we're doing that instead. But it took a while. And your kid might have something going on that like it takes a while, and let them be who they are. And it doesn't mean that they're not going to be okay in the long run. My kid is fine. Nate's much better now. He's doing great. I have nothing but great things to say about him. It just took time. And just because, and this was a thing I had to do that might apply to some parents, just because he came home from the hospital didn't mean he didn't have to heal still, right? So like he was healing. He came home in October 8th grade. He was healing into the middle of freshman year and even a little past that because it was really hard, and like some of that healing was rekindling friendships and getting back his feet back under him academically and that kind of stuff. Now we're doing great. Now things are going smoothly. So if you're listening to this, if you're watching this, potentially your kid's got some challenges that are hopefully not as severe as what my kid went through. And all of your kids lived through a worldwide pandemic. They lived through a worldwide trauma event that none of us went through as a kid. We don't know what that's like. We don't know what that experience is. And we're expecting things from our kids that are maybe not reasonable because we're thinking they live in the world that we lived in. My kids are weird because they ride into the center of town and get lunch and stuff with their friends. Like that's not a typical behavior in my town. Most of their friends, they have to work really hard to hang out with because their friends are at home doing nothing on their phones, right? And my kids are like, Dad, nobody does. Like you think it's when you were a kid and no one rides bikes anymore. And I'm like, I know that, but you have friends who I know have bikes, and if you just contact them, you're gonna every now and then you'll get success, and it's starting to work finally. And I'm trying to single-handedly bring back kids on bikes, at least in Massachusetts. But it's just a matter of if we look at our kids and let it be true that they're having trouble contacting friends, or that they have to be on the phone to interact with their friends. Like that's all that stuff's real. We have to trust them that the world is how they see it, and then we also have to help them stretch, right? So I believe you that you have to text your friends and that they sometimes don't contact you back for like 3 days because they don't know how to do that because they're only 15 or 16. And also go ride your bike, get out of my house. Like both of those things can be true.
Right. Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that. Okay. Now let's go through the rapid fire questions. What would be your best parenting advice in less than 60 seconds?
I already gave it. Your kid's story is not your story.
Yeah, that's a beautiful one.
Like that's it. It just isn't. And the sooner we figure that out, the better. My second best piece of advice is it is not about raising an 8th grader. It is not about raising a senior in college or in high school. It's not about raising a 10-year-old. It's about helping your kid grow into a healthy, well-adjusted 26-year-old. You have so much time. You've got plenty of time. Your kid is going to be okay. And they've got the right parents. No one who is listening to my voice gets to say they're a bad parent, because bad parents don't do stuff like this. So you're a good parent. Too bad for you.
Beautiful. And why do you think the summit is a must attend for a parent?
Because you're never it's so hard to get the diversity of opinion and thought and concepts and ideas that you're going to get from this summit. It can't be overstated how valuable it is to talk to just a plethora of experts in their field who are all experts in different areas and have different kinds of thoughts and different pieces of expertise around parenting and ADHD. You're just not going to get that kind of content unless you do a whole lot of work to filter and find all of that content. And it's already happened. It's already been done. So just listen to the people who are here.
What's the most unusual strategy that you've heard that helps with daily routines?
It might be mine, where I'm skipping my phone for 90 minutes in the morning. That one, I don't know a lot of people are doing that, and it pays dividends for me. That's one of them. Another one is music in the morning. Like playing music in the morning and letting that set the emotional tone for your day is pretty useful. But I know some families who do it, but not too many.
Right. It might be a good idea just to drop with a playlist for families.
Yeah.
What's the one thing you wish your parents understood about your ADHD?
Like mine specifically?
Yeah.
That I had it, for one. Because I'm old. I'm 47 years old. Like ADHD was a new sort of thing when I was a kid. And my mom was great. My mom did put a lot of effort into helping me get through school. And also, like, thought that ADHD might be an excuse. There was a time in middle school when my teachers were like, we think he maybe has ADHD. And she was like, I don't want to give him an excuse. So, yeah, she didn't know, right? It's not her fault. We didn't know that stuff back then. And so that not wanting to give me an excuse, I might have learned some skills that I needed to have back in middle school and high school if that had been acted upon. But it wasn't. And honestly, that's okay, because I would be a different person, and I'm pretty happy with who I am right now.
Beautiful. What's your favorite way of turning chaos into a to-do list?
I kind of just do that automatically at this point. So part of the nature of me being a coach and like a consultant and stuff is things start going wrong, and I'm immediately figuring out why they went wrong and what to do instead and how to solve the problem and that kind of stuff. But the number one strategy for me is not that planning and prioritizing and problem solving. It's what comes before that, which is emotional stuff. We have to validate the emotions that come up with chaos. We have to accept that the chaos has happened. And if the cause of that chaos is something like ADHD, we have to be okay with that, right? Like we have to give our kids permission to have ADHD. We have to give our spouse potentially permission to have ADHD. I have asthma. Sometimes I can't breathe. And that does not mean that I'm too lazy and unmotivated to breathe. It just means that I have asthma. And I also have ADHD. And sometimes I double book myself, and sometimes I can't find my glasses, and sometimes I'm flying out of the house at the last minute and I'm going to be late. And that doesn't mean I don't care. It doesn't mean I'm not like thoughtful and I'm lazy or anything like that. It just means I have ADHD. That stuff is supposed to happen. Just like I'm supposed to not be able to breathe sometimes. I'm supposed to lose things sometimes. I'm supposed to be overscheduled sometimes. I'm supposed to lose track of time sometimes. I have ADHD. That stuff is supposed to happen. If it wasn't, I wouldn't have ADHD. So giving myself permission to have ADHD calms a lot of that chaos. And it's not necessarily turning it into a to-do list, but it calms the chaos. And that part is important, because you're not going to make a to-do list if things aren't calm.
Exactly. That's beautiful. Brendan, I must say, this was such a pleasure having you with us today. I'm sure the audience enjoyed it as much as I did. We definitely need you to have you back sometime. Thank you so much for sharing your insights with us today.
Thank you for having me. It's been fantastic.